this video, we're going to do a series of joint movements that in Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga, we call churnings, or in Sanskrit it's Dasha Chalana. They're movements that are really simple, accessible for anybody. So yeah, let's go through them. Start from standing with your arms just relaxed alongside your body. Step 1 foot back, it doesn't matter which one. You can balance either on the big toe, the ball of the foot, or maybe you prefer to be on the top of the foot. So just experiment. So that foot steps back and begin to circle the ankle. And then we'll move the foot, the ankle, in the opposite direction. I'm going to do all these movements about 6 or 8 times, but not get really hung up on counting. You just kind of get a feel for about how many times is just right. We start with the feet. The feet come back so they're about hip-width distance apart. Take your palms and slide them down the tops of your thighs and let your knees find a comfortable space apart and begin to circle your knees. And then we'll pause and move the knees in the opposite direction. So even though we're moving the knees, you can probably feel movement on the soles of your feet, right? You can feel the weight shifting from the inside sides of the feet, the outside sides of the feet. That's grounding. Let's come back up to standing and separate the feet a little wider than hip-width distance apart. And you can always play around with this distance on different days. Let your hands come to your hips and begin to circle your hips. For this movement, so you notice I started out with a pretty big movement, but I think for this one, if you can keep the movement pretty small, like just in the pelvis, just in the belly. So not so much hip circles right now, just moving the pelvis all around. And then of course pausing and moving in the opposite direction. It's not wrong if you want to move your hips in those big circles. Hip circles are great. And sometimes when I teach this, I do both versions. But for today, we're just going to keep the movement in the pelvis. And come on back to your center. I'll turn sideways so you can see how this movement looks from this side. And it's really about feeling it. So feeling the undulation of your spine, and you'll know what I mean in a minute. We'll take a breath in, and on an exhale, bend the knees, just drop the tailbone down, and then let the shoulders lift you up. So exhale, knees drop down, and rise back up. So I realize you can't see too much of how the spine is moving here because of what I'm wearing today. But maybe you can get a sense of that snake-like movement of the spine. Two more times. And then we're back to stability. I'll face you once again and let the hands come together in front of the heart. We'll interlace the fingers right at the heart and begin to circle the wrists. For those of us that work at a desk, the wrists can really benefit from this movement. We tend to do that habitual movement with the mouse or with the touchpad. Let's pause and move in the opposite direction. And I always think it's interesting when you pause and move in the opposite direction. Here with this simple movement of the wrists, sometimes the body resists it. Sometimes the body's like, no, we're not going to do that. We tend to have very habitual ways of moving and being in the body. So moving in these non-habitual ways can be really helpful. Let's just shake out the fingers, shake out the wrists. Now with your inhalation, take your shoulders up towards your ears and exhale them back and down. So they come forward and up, and on the exhale, they move back and down. Sometimes you just want to let breath out with some sound or with a sigh. Just let that come on out. One more time, forward and up, back and down. And then we'll reverse that movement. So now the shoulders will reach back, rise up, and then come forward and down on the exhale. Back and up on the inhale, and forward and down on the exhale. I usually don't do as many of this part of the movement. I find that, I don't know, for me it just feels better to do the back and down. It's like the opposite of how my body is most of the day. So again, it's breaking out of those habitual patterns of movement. So let's come to the face, the head, the neck, and bring awareness right here to the tip of your nose. And as though you could draw in space at the tip of your nose, just let the head move. We're bringing movement into the cervical spine, into the neck. It could be circular movement, or like drawing the figure 8. And if you've only moved in one direction so far, take a moment and or two and move the head in the opposite direction. So we've taken this movement practice, these churnings, through all the major joints of the body: ankles, knees, hips or hip joints, wrists, shoulders, and the neck. Now we'll ground it all with a posture called goat pose. I'm going to turn sideways again so you can maybe get a better understanding of goat. So let's start this way. The toes are going to turn in towards each other slightly. The knees have a little bend, kind of like you're being tickled on the backs of your knees, so that the knees just drop. The palms can rest on your hips, they can rest on your belly, or they can just rest on the tops of your thighs. I'll turn sideways again so you can get that view. The shoulders stay back and down, so the front body is wide open. The crown of the head reaches up. So just like in mountain pose or other standing poses, you're simultaneously rooted down while rising up through the top of the head. And the practice is to simply ground here, kind of like it's named after a goat, mountain goat, because they're so stable and steady as they make their way up a mountain. We're kind of mimicking or replicating that same sense of stability, steadiness, sure-footedness. And of course, because it's yoga, we're aware of the breath in this posture. 3-part breath can be really nice here. Or just a simple awareness of the flow, the natural flow of your breath. And to release, press down, rise up. Come on back to your center. You can start your day with these simple movements, especially if you're someone who, when you first get out of bed in the morning, feel a little stiff or tight. It's a great practice for bringing lubrication into the joints of the body. And it's really a great practice anytime. So, have fun exploring. Please ask or make any comments if you have questions. Namaste.